Welcome to NJAPM's first divorce mock mediation. So this is a new series for NJAPM and one I think is going to work really great. Today we have a mediator, Bruce Matez, and two clients, Michelle Cresti, who's playing the wife obviously, and Adam Berner, who is going to be the husband. So first let me introduce them. Adam is a practitioner and trainer in mediation and collaborative law and owner of the Berner Law Mediation Group with offices in Midtown Manhattan and Hackensack. He has served as the president of the Family and Divorce Mediation Council of Greater New York, founding president of the Collaborative Divorce Association of New Jersey, and is a founding member of both the New York Association of Collaborative Professionals and the New Jersey Council of Collaborative Practice Groups. Michelle Cresti is a partner in Mason and Cresti, which is located in Clinton. She's an arbitrator, mediator, and collaborative law attorney, graduated from Rutgers College, Rutgers University in 1986, and Villanova University of Law School in 1989. After graduating law school, she clerked for 2 New Jersey Superior Court judges. Bruce Matez has been practicing divorce and family law for over 30 years, primarily in Camden, Gloucester, and Burlington counties. He's been a mediator for 25 years. His firm, Berner Matez, is located in Cherry Hill. Bruce practices alternative dispute resolution, including mediation, collaborative divorce, arbitration, and parenting coordination, and out-of-court negotiation and resolution. He will be a director of NJAPM starting in October. So this is how today's mock mediation is going. I will turn this over to Bruce in just a minute, and he will start the mediation. It's going to go somewhere between 20 and 30 minutes. I'll leave it up to Bruce as to when it ends. At the end of the 20 to 30 minute mediation, I will do a short debrief, and then we will open it to questions from anyone who's attending. Also, if you're attending and you think that you could do something a little different, if you wanted to demonstrate something a little different, we can make you a panelist and let you try to do that. So we have very good attendance today. I think we have about 50, well, actually 35, about 40, 48 registered. We also have some who are new members to NJAPM who will be taking the 40-hour divorce mediation training course in October. So with that, Bruce, it's yours.
Thanks, Carl. So I just want to give a brief introduction. I'm going to approach this today as the first session I'm having with Michelle and Adam, and sort of not necessarily the very beginning, because at the beginning of my sessions, I do an introduction. I'm going to skip the introduction, but I'm going to take it from there and give you some insight into the way that I handle my first session. Carl, is there a way for us to, oh, there we go, forget it, I got it. Little technical issue there.
Right, for those that don't know, if they go to hide non-video participant, then they'll just see the 3 of us, which will be more realistic for a mediation on Zoom.
Great, thank you, Adam. Okay, so Adam and Michelle, now that I've given you my introduction and we've set the tone for how we're going to proceed, I have a question for you that you may not be prepared to answer, but I'd like you to give it some thought. I'm curious to hear from you what your goals are, your overall goals in terms of what you hope to accomplish in the mediation, and ultimately where you see your life going, what you want to get out of this. What I'm asking you is not specifics like I want X amount of dollars in alimony, or I want this particular amount of money or something like that, or a particular custody and parenting arrangement. I'm asking for more of your overall overarching goals in general related to the divorce itself, to the relationship that the two of you want to have with each other going forward, and anything else, any of your other goals. So I don't care who wants to go first, but I'll say whoever wants to go first, raise your hand and go ahead.
Ladies first.
Well,
Thank you, Adam.
thank you, Adam. Bruce, can I be frank with you?
Sure.
And this is, yeah,
I
Uh-oh.
hope you'll always be frank with me, Michelle.
okay. And this is all confidential. This isn't going to end up anyplace. All right. This
As
is
I
what I
said
want
before-
out of, this is what I want out of this. My husband and I are both very educated. You know, you probably don't know this yet, but we both have earned MBAs from Columbia. I've been working like a dog since the day of graduation. Right now, I'm in a partnership track at Ernst & Young. And Adam has decided that he doesn't have to go and work to his potential, and he doesn't have to just work as hard or work to all of the opportunity that he has. And, you know, and we have two children. We have a boy and a girl. They're 7 and 4. They're the apple of my eye. But, you know, and I've been rowing this boat just far too long. So in a short answer, Bruce, what I would like you to do is get me out of this boat. I'm sick of rowing it. Adam, you have to tell Adam, and you have to impress upon Adam that he has to start rowing his share. And I want him to move out of our apartment, get his own place. It's getting very toxic and nasty at our house. It's affecting our children adversely, and I'm trying all I can do to keep a good home and a safe environment for our children, but he is just not allowing it with his behavior. He decided he wants to be a consultant and work on his time and not have to go to a regular job like I have to do. And I'm just sick of pounding the pavement and doing all of these things. So Bruce, what I want you to do is to tell Adam that he has to start doing his part. He has to get a job to his potential, start contributing, start taking care of our kids, and in the meanwhile, he can move out and get his own place.
All right.
That's it in a nutshell.
Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate your honesty. I'm going to come back to what you just talked about in a few minutes. I want to give Adam a chance to tell me what your goals are, but I'm going to ask you to do something for me, which is going to be very difficult, I'm sure. And that is, please do not respond to what Michelle just said. I promise you I'll give you a chance to, but what I'm interested from hearing from you, not as a response to what Michelle just said, but what are your goals? What's important to you in terms of the divorce and ultimately what's going to happen going forward?
Sure. Bruce, thanks for asking that question. As you could see, Michelle likes telling other people what to do, whether it's spouses or mediators, but I'll refrain from that and talk about my goals. As you could see from her tone, there's a lot of toxicity in the home. It's a very difficult place for me to live, for her to live, I'm sure, and certainly it's impacting the kids. So, you know, step number one, goal number one is try to figure out and get your help in reducing how toxic our living environment is. I'm not prepared to move out. I'm not prepared to give up my role as a father of my precious children. So we'll need to talk about how to ensure that I will be as involved as their mom is in terms of parenting moving forward. I am a consultant. I'm not making as much as Michelle, although someday I hope to be earning much more than Michelle, which is one of the reasons why I'm on this consulting track. but that does afford me the flexibility to be, more around as a parent for these young, precious children. And relating to that is the goal of having some autonomy, of not having Michelle telling me what to feed the kids, what time they should go to sleep, how to be a parent. I'm more than equipped for being a parent, no less than she is. And one of the problems is that Michelle just can't help herself. So whether it's how to be a parent or whether it's what I should do, what's my calling professionally, I'd like to, meet, to have those goals professional and personal addressed without Michelle telling me what those goals should be.
Okay. So I want to, I think it's important that we all recognize that you've both indicated to me that the living situation in your home right now is toxic. And you both acknowledged it, that it's toxic to you and it's toxic to your children probably. So it sounds to me like one of the first things that you both want to talk about is how to reduce that level of toxicity and possibly find a way to separate. Am I correct in what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Yes, Adam?
Yep, we agree.
Okay. So that's very helpful because it helps me understand where you guys want to go, and that would probably be the first thing that we need to talk about. I want to address, though, Michelle, with you, one of your comments and your thoughts, which is you said that you want me to impress upon Adam that he has to get a job and support himself and support the family. And we talked about this a little bit in the introduction. I know it was in some of the materials I sent you, but I think it's important to reiterate. It's not the job, in my opinion, it's not the job of a mediator to impress upon somebody else what they have to do. The goal here is, my goal is to help you and Adam come to a resolution that you're both comfortable with, that you both feel that you can live with going forward on whatever the issues are that we need to talk about. So we will certainly talk about your desire for Adam to either leave the consulting industry or get a job, or what his plan is in terms of consulting and income going forward. But I, as the mediator, am not going to tell Adam that he has to do something. That's not the job of a mediator. As a matter of fact, the only person who can really force Adam to do anything is a judge. And a judge can't really even force him to go out and get a job. A judge can only impute income to him based on what a judge thinks he could potentially make if he got a job. So I want to make sure you understand that and you're okay with that as we move forward.
Bruce, my whole point of going to mediation was to sort of short circuit having to go to court and go through, all of that, because I want to make this as expeditious as possible. We don't have a lot of money to be spending on lawyers and all these things. But, my friend got divorced and just last year, and the judge made her go back to work. And she was a stay-at-home mom with 3 little kids, and she had to go back to work. So I don't see why Adam, who has an MBA, can't go back to work too.
Okay, we're going to talk about that. But before we get to that subject, I want to make sure you understand my role here. And that my role here is not to force Adam to do anything. I can't. I'm not the judge. I'm a mediator. You guys are doing this voluntarily. You've chosen mediation as your method to hopefully get to a resolution. And so I'm just focused on making sure you understand that there are certain things that I can do and there's certain things I cannot do, and I cannot force Adam to do anything. Understand?
I understand.
Okay. But you led me to the next question I was going to ask the two of you, which is, why did you choose mediation as your method of getting to a resolution, hopefully? And Michelle, you indicated you wanted to short circuit the system and not spend too much money. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, that's what I said.
Okay, just give me a quick basic understanding of what you mean by short circuit the system.
Well, like I said, my friend got divorced last year and they were in court for 18 months. And every time I talked to her, the poor thing, they were dragging her through these motions and depositions and all these things just to be able to get what she was, you know, her fair share. And then she ended up getting screwed in the event anyway. And like I said, they made her go back to work when she was living, you know, stay-at-home mom in Short Hills, and now, you know, they spent a fortune, and, you know, she just did not end up well for her.
Okay. So before I get to Adam, any other reasons in particular why you chose mediation? No? Michelle?
For me, no, that's it. That's it.
Okay. So Adam, why did you choose mediation?
Yeah. So certainly to try to figure this out in a quick way. We don't have money. We're running a shortfall. So that's certainly important. But, you know, Michelle and I, notwithstanding our differences, we're pretty smart. And I don't think we need a judge to tell us, who's a stranger to our family, telling us what's best for us and what's best for our kids. So I expect that with some help, because we can't do it on our own, we should be able to figure this out on our own.
Great, thank you. All right, so let's, I'm going to ask you one more question, and then we're going to dive into this, what I think is a bit of an urgency in terms of the toxic nature of what's going on at home. What kind of relationship do you want to have with each other at the end of this process? When you're divorced and you're living separately, what kind of relationship do you want to have? Adam, I'm going to throw it to you first, since we made Michelle go first the last couple of times.
Sure. So I hope we have a respectful one. You know, we have kids in common for the rest of our lives. When I walk down the aisle of my daughter's aisle and my son's, I hope there's good, you know, respectful energy that's flowing through. But you know, right now that's not the place where we're at. But I hope with time and with distance, we'll get to a better relationship.
Thank you, Michelle.
I agree. Actually, I do agree with Adam, but I want to make sure that it's a fair relationship. I don't want to feel like I'm rowing this boat anymore, and I think it has to be fair.
Thank you. Wonderful. So I just want to acknowledge that you guys agree that you want to have a good working relationship between you going forward, which is a wonderful thing, because I don't always hear that from everybody. So it's a good thing. I'm also going to potentially go back to some of the things that we just talked about as we move forward. There may come times where where you're having a dispute over something. I may come back to these goals and talk to you a little bit about these goals. So before
Bruce, it sounds like, I assume it's Michelle, because I'm sure it's not you and it's not me. There's a lot of noise that's coming. It sounds like she has a party behind that door over there.
I was just
going let me go get the party hats.
The same question. Is there something going on in one of your homes or offices behind the scenes that is causing that noise?
Yep. We just ended the party.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so the people are working here.
Okay. This is one of the unfortunate, the unfortunate downsides of doing these things virtually and not in person in the office, is that we have to deal with these kind of technical issues and other things sometimes. So let's talk about how you guys think we can move forward in terms of moving you towards some type of a separation arrangement, so that we can minimize some of the toxicity in your house for you guys and for your kids. So again, I don't care who wants to go first, but does either one of you have an idea of what you'd like to see happen in the near future?
Well, ideally, we would have our separate places. Ideally, our kids would go back and forth between our respective places. The problem is, right now, I just don't see the financial ability to make that happen. I know I can't afford it. It's been rough for me to get started, and this pandemic has certainly not made it any easier. So things are pretty dry for me in terms of money coming in. So money was tight to begin with, but now with this Corona situation, I just don't know how we could have another place to enable us to have the parenting time that we want with our kids.
Michelle?
Yeah. I want to bring up a very important point. So Adam keeps saying that he doesn't have any money. And, that's really not exactly the truth, because Adam does have money. He just doesn't feel like spending it. He has an inheritance that was unfortunate. My in-laws passed away, and he inherited some money. So he has that money to draw on if he doesn't feel like getting a job. That's one thing. The other is that fine, if his consulting isn't working where it's supposed to, where he wants it to be, he can go get a job. Everything is all online now. I don't see any reason why he can align himself with a company. My own company, there's job posts all the time, and I send it to him. So I don't understand why he can't align himself with some company and start getting a stream of income coming in. And in the meanwhile, he can rely on his inheritance for money.
Okay, so keep in mind, I don't know any of the details. We're going to get into it in a little bit. But before we get there, what would you like to see happen? I understand Adam is saying he thinks at some point, you're going to need to separate. He's hoping that you'll work out an arrangement for you guys to share spending time with your children. He's concerned about the financial ability. I get it. You're saying to me, I don't think there's a financial issue here. We could make it work. But I would like to know from you what it is that you want to try to make work right now.
Well, I want us to have separate places. I think it's time that we just cannot live under the same roof anymore. I mean, for a million different reasons, but now it's just affecting the children, and it's just not right.
Obviously there's a number of different options available to you. Michelle, if Michelle could move out, Adam could move out, you guys could do something like something called a nesting arrangement, where you each spend time in the house and then you each spend time somewhere else. There are probably some other options out there that I haven't thought about right now. So let's talk about other options. So I heard, unfortunately, I'm sorry to hear that, Adam, that your parents are both deceased. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Does either one of you have family or somebody in the area with whom you could temporarily live with?
I would be open to consider some kind of what I think you call the nesting arrangement, at least for some period of time, whether staying by friends or family on some nights, and then Michelle would do the same on some other nights, and we would take turns being at home with the kids. It's certainly going to make things on a work level to try to develop my business and looking for jobs, which, by the way, I am looking into as well. I haven't ignored Michelle's nasty comments because I agree with them. So I think it will make it tough, but it's obviously just tough living under the same roof with Michelle right now.
Thanks. I just want to make sure I heard that correctly. So are you telling us that you are out there looking for potential full-time employment aside from the consulting work that you do?
Right now, I'm looking to all alternatives.
Okay.
I'm not looking to be, God forbid, a deadbeat dad. I'm not looking to, to ride off of Michelle's, financial position, her income right now. I'm looking to to grow and to develop my business right now. Obviously, like for many people out there, it's a really hard time. You know, I have some clients in my consulting right now. There are small startups. I have some equity in those startups, but they're not going to be paying rent right now. It's something for long term. In the meantime, to pay the rent, I am looking into options.
Great. It's wonderful to hear. Michelle, I hope that gives you a little, some sense of feeling like you're being heard.
Bruce, she heard that before. It won't make a difference.
No, respectfully, Bruce, that was the first time I've ever heard that he's looking at other options. It's a very first, I'm glad to hear it, but that's the first time I ever heard it. And you know, by the way, I'm not making nasty comments. This is just the truth. Adam doesn't want to hear it, but I'm just saying the truth the way it is, and somebody has to say it.
But I heard from Adam is that he agrees with some of the things you're saying about the fact that, you know, he needs to go out there and look for other options, and he's doing it. And it's not going to be a productive conversation for us to argue over, has Adam said this before, has he not? But he's saying it here today. And I heard it, and I made a note of it. And so I'm going to take Adam at his word that he's going to help, try to do what he can to help with the financial circumstances. And so let me just sort of address with you, Michelle, because I don't know if you understand. It seems that Adam understands what a nesting arrangement is. Do you understand what that is?
Yes.
Okay. So I'd like to talk about, I'd like to see if we can explore an option, a nesting option or arrangement that might work for the two of you on a temporary basis. I'm not suggesting that this is a full-time permanent solution, but it might be a good solution for the two of you in terms of moving forward. So let me just ask right off the bat, if you were to do something like that, do each of you have somewhere else that you could go to stay when you're not at home with the children? Like a relative, a friend, somewhere like that. I think, Adam, you said you probably could find a place. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, I was thinking Michelle also. Michelle's parents are,
are
nearby.
I don't want you to speak for Michelle. Sorry to interrupt you. Let's let Michelle speak for herself, okay? Michelle, how about you?
Yeah, I suppose I could work some, as long as it was temporary. I wouldn't want to be the thing that wouldn't go away. But I suppose if it was temporary, until something more concrete could be worked out, I could probably arrange for something like that.
Wonderful. So let me just address the temporary issue for a second, because I think it's important that you guys hear and understand this. I'm a big believer that one of the great benefits of mediation is that you have the ability to try things. And if they don't work, you come back to the table and talk about them and talk about what's working and what's not working. Unfortunately, the court system doesn't afford you trial and error. The court system gives you an arrangement and says, this is what you're going to do. This is how you're going to live. And if you don't like it, too bad. The only thing that's going to change is if there's a substantial change in circumstances, come back and see the judge and maybe you'll get it changed. But you have the ability to put something down today and agree to it and say, we're going to try it for 30 days or 60 days or whatever. And then we're going to come back and talk about it. And we're going to see what works and what doesn't work. And that to me, I think is beneficial to you, and it's beneficial to your kids. Something that you decide might work for your son, but may not work for your daughter too. So you have the ability to work on each of them as individuals also, and what's working for them and not working for them. So does that sound like something you're both willing to start talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
I would consider it.
Great. Okay, I'm going to be mindful of time and tell Carl that I think we're getting close to 30 minutes, so I'm going to take a break. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you.
Okay. So, excellent. Everyone should know, excuse me, and I didn't mention this at the beginning, that Bruce had no idea what this role play was going to be. He had no insight into the fact pattern, nothing at all. but obviously Michelle and Adam had practiced this very well, and I thought it went really, really well. So I have a few questions for you, Bruce,
Okay.
and then for Adam and Michelle, and then we're going to open it up. So Bruce, is this the usual way you start a mediation?
It's the second thing I do. The first thing I do is an introduction, and I give a lot of instructions and advice to people about communicating and what they can expect from me, what I expect from them. I would have already explained my role to them in that introduction, what the thing that I did with Michelle about the forcing Adam to do something. But yes, this is how I start almost every one of them.
When you start like this, it seems to me that it might lead you to be doing the mediation in a certain order. For example, when you're talking about, now the question is separating, you have to get into finances and you have to do it that way. So you might start at the end where most mediators start with parenting. Is that fair or not?
I don't have a specific place that I want to go. I ask those questions and I try to make them open-ended so that I can get some sense from them of where they want to go and what's important to them. I generally ask at some point in the first session, is there anything urgent that we need to talk about?
Okay.
Do I need to set aside 15, 20 minutes or a half hour to talk about something that has to get resolved today? And every now and then somebody says to me, yes, I need to get out, or I need my spouse to get out tomorrow. And that'll lead us to that temporary conversation about a temporary separation and how to make that work.
Okay. Are you a fan of nesting?
No.
Because it seemed to me,
Not at all.
well, that's, most people aren't, but it seemed to me that you were almost pushing nesting because you said, let's nesting, I'll describe it to you. Do you think that will be work? You can do a trial, blah, blah, blah. I thought you were pushing it. So just an observation.
It's good to hear.
And
no, I don't.
other,
I generally do not push nesting. To me, it just felt like it kind of happened. I throw it out as an option, but I think my brain was going to them both telling. Oh well, I hadn't gotten into the inheritance yet, but Adam telling me that they really couldn't afford for him to go out and live somewhere else where he could have
Or her.
bedroom. What's that?
Or her.
Or her, right? Where one of them could have a 3-bedroom,
Right.
condo or apartment somewhere. So I guess my brain sort of went there for some reason. Yeah.
at one point you asked Adam, do you have some place where you could go to live? Why did you ask Adam that?
You know what? I don't remember. It just was probably part of the conversation that we were having.
Okay.
Normally, I would have probably just asked it to both. Yeah, I don't know why that happened that way.
Okay. Okay, let me go to Adam. Adam, how do you think this went?
Yeah, so there were a couple of those subtle differences where I felt, in light of the force of Michelle, would I be the one being asked to make those kind of compromises, the one to move out? So maybe I shouldn't have started with that point. I mean, generally my point, generally I would say I thought it went very well. I felt very comfortable with Barissa's role and the connection and his role and how he could be of help. But I was wondering, in light of the kind of different of energy between both sides, if I would be the one being asked to make those kind of compromises.
Mm-hmm. Michelle, how did you?
I thought it went well, because I thought the hard part for Bruce was to get me to stand down without telling me to stand down. right? Because I clearly came in there with a head of steam, and I'm the one that's always right. So he had to quickly see that I was probably contributing to a lot of the toxicness, right? Because I know best. But he had to tell me to stand down without pissing me off. Use any other word, right? Otherwise, I would hate him, and this whole thing would just be moot.
Right. So you were very comfortable with the way it went.
Yeah, because he was able to use words to get me to just hear me. He listened to me, and then just kind of move to the next step. At least he got us to, now, we're being ultimate reasonable people, but he got me to come up with we came up with a compromise, how to at least diffuse a situation at home.
Okay. In my opinion, having dealt with Bruce a lot of times, he's a very likable guy. His manner is really friendly and easy. Does that come across to you, Michelle and Adam? And does that help?
Yeah, I think it definitely helps. I think, it's scary being in these shoes, even in a role play a little, just getting stressed, what I would be asked to do, whether by Michelle or by the mediator. So his tone, his mild-mannered nature, that all helps.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. He smiled, he kept smiling through, didn't get ruffled, didn't get flabbergasted, even when I was pointing at him and what have you. He didn't get upset. So at least there was one person in the room who wasn't getting agitated.
Okay. So
Carl,
now we're
can I ask Adam a question?
Sure.
So how did it feel? I want to ask this a lot, but I never get a chance to. How did it feel for you that I let Michelle sort of spout off like she did without controlling it better?
I expected nothing less. I don't think Michelle could help herself, so I assume you're going to have to do that.
Okay.
And she was pretty cooperative with you, so I was fine with that.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Okay, before I open it up to the attendees to ask questions or do whatever they want, I want to really praise Bruce. It takes a lot of courage to play the mediator. It takes a lot of courage to do it live in a webinar. So this is really great. And I think it probably demonstrates how comfortable he is being in the role and how comfortable he is with his ability. So thanks a lot, Bruce. And to you guys who played great. Too bad the Emmys were last night. You'd be up for Emmys. Okay, so now let's go to the attendees. Does anyone have a question? And if you do, please raise your hand. See if I see anyone, any raised hands.
Somebody,
Martin.
there are two raised hands.
Actually, now there's a lot. Merrill Martin, Trisha.
Okay, I'm going to start at Merrill Martin. Merrill, I'm going to allow you to talk. That means you have to take yourself off of mute. Where did Merrill Martin go? Hold on. I lost Merrill Martin.
I got him.
You have him, click on him.
I got him.
Okay, you got him, click on him.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to ask a question. First of all, I thought you did a terrific job. And one of the things about being a mediator is you never really know what's going to come out of an individual's mouth. Bruce, what were you thinking when Michelle came at you like a sledgehammer with regard to her questions? And by the way, Michelle, you did a great job, but seriously, it had to put you a little bit more on guard. And what were your thoughts?
Immediately I was trying to figure out how to manage it so that so Adam didn't get, didn't think that I was allowing her to get too crazy with what she was saying. And immediately, like, it was, how do I manage this? And do I let her keep going or do I interrupt her? I mean, all of that was kind of going in my head, but my kind of go-to normally is I'm, especially in the first time I'm meeting people, I want to give them a chance to talk and let me know what's going on as much as I can. So, and it gives me a sense of understanding how I'm going to manage it going forward to see how far she's going to go. So I think, that's not an uncommon thing to happen.
Right.
Especially in the first session. So
Hey, thanks so much, guys. You did a great job.
thank you.
Okay, next we have Tricia Elliott. So I'm going to click allow to talk, and you have to take yourself off of mute, Tricia.
Hey, Bruce.
Hello.
I thought you did an amazing job, all
Thank you.
three of you guys. But I wanted to ask if this would have been real and you would have continued on for the remainder of the hour and a half, what would you have transitioned to next, content-wise?
Well, the next conversation really had to happen. I needed to get some background information. I would need to, that's one of the things that was going through my head is, do I go in the direction that they're taking me, which is how do I help them find a way to separate or do something to limit this toxic nature that's in the house? Or do I go back to my norm, which is, let me spend a few minutes with them getting the background information. What are the assets? What are the incomes? What are the issues? What are the overall overarching issues that are going on? So I would have wanted to find out some more information about that. I don't typically do substantive work in my first session. Again, unless there's something urgent, I generally try to make that first session a getting to know you kind of thing, me getting the information and doing what I was doing there, which was sort of giving them an opportunity to talk. And of course, I was mindful of wanting to do something productive in 20 minutes to a half hour. So I kind of moved it in a different direction than I think I normally would have. Did that answer your question?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, no, that's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, Anshu, I'm going to allow you to talk, and you have to unmute yourself.
Okay. So one of the questions I thought I wanted to ask you, Bruce, is in terms of agenda setting, you set the agenda. You didn't ask the clients what their agenda was for the session. So I'm wondering if that's your style, because I spend, just as a contrast, I do spend a lot of time at the beginning of the session just agreeing on the items we're going to be covering in the session, so the client doesn't say at the end, oh, by the way, in the last 5 minutes, I wanted to talk about this. But I'm asking it just in terms of style, especially because I have new people from the upcoming 40-hour class listening. You know, everyone has a different method to their madness.
Yeah, no, my style is that I would have normally gotten into that first, and I would have asked them to get some information about what the issues are in their minds. I only did it this way was to give us something substantive to talk about for 20 or 30 minutes, because I wanted everybody to see, you know, something going on and not just an introductory session. But yeah, normally I will set the agenda, because I find if I let them set the agenda, they'll fight over the agenda. So but I want to find out from them what the issues are that need to be addressed, including, are there any urgent or important issues that need to get addressed quickly? But then I will be honest, sometimes they take me in a different direction, and I remind myself after I get taken in a different direction often that I should not let people take me in a different direction.
I think you did a good job, and if I had been the client, I would have been very comfortable. So thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, Megan, I'm going to allow you to talk. Take yourself off of mute.
Thank you. So my question, Bruce, for you is around Michelle's attitude and her sort of, belittling Adam and continuing to do that. And I understand why you need both parties to be able to sort of vent and get a sense for where their head is and what's going on in their mind and what the dynamic is. in a later session or a following session, how much do you allow her to do that, and how can you diffuse it with her without smacking her hand, which she's not going to like, right? Can you give me some input around that?
I'm not sure. So my gut tells me that that is just something that I feel as we go, and it could be different depending on the person. So if it kept going, I might have opted at some point to caucus with Michelle and
Okay, you need to feed this cat as soon as you're done this game.
Trisha, I'm putting you on mute. I might have caucused with her and had a frank conversation with her that it wasn't working. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I sort of asked her to see if I could get her to calm down. Michelle, what were the words you used a few minutes ago? Diffused it. Yeah, I would have tried to diffuse a little bit of it.
And you would do that in a caucus rather than together?
Yeah, it depends. Honestly, it really depends. So one of the, sometimes you have to kind of weigh your options, but sometimes you have to wonder, like, if I start to talk to her about that, is she going to get her back up because I'm doing that? Like, is she going to think I'm reprimanding her or coming at her in front of Adam? And, so some of it is about personality and getting to know their personality. If I was trying to diffuse the situation with her over and over and over again and it wasn't working, I might try the caucus at some point. But I would always, if I did that, I would have a similar caucus with Adam. And I would be probably frank with Adam that one of the reasons I'm doing it is to try to get Michelle to limit or sort of tone it down a little bit.
Okay. Good.
And some of it also, Megan, I think it depends on how I see it's impacting Adam, which is really hard to do virtually. It's way easier to do it in person. It's really hard to gauge how somebody's responding or reacting to something virtually.
Adam?
It seemed in this, go ahead. I'm sorry. It seemed in this case that Adam was sort of used to it. And so he wasn't taking it really personally. So it was something that might have been offensive to you, Bruce, initially, but Adam seemed okay with it. So I almost feel like, yeah.
So my sense from Adam was that he was looking for me to help him tone things down. And Michelle was looking for me to help force Adam to do things that he didn't maybe necessarily want to do, or in her mind that she didn't think he was wanting to do. I was starting to formulate those ideas in my head as we were going along.
Right.
Great.
Let me ask you that question. How do you deal with that situation of people that are getting emotional? How long do you let it go? Do you let it go at all? And then I'll ask you the same question, Michelle.
I let it go a lot, especially if it keeps on coming. I'm assuming that she's not feeling heard. So then I'll kind of double down and make sure I'm capturing what her frustration is, to really kind of, formulate it, capture it, make sure it's understood. In my experience, when I show that I really understand how frustrated she is, then it often just kind of levels out. But if she keeps on saying that, it means that she feels that she's not being heard. So that'll be a sign for me. So I let it go a lot. Okay.
Michelle?
Pretty similar to both Bruce and Adam. I think that one of the hallmarks to success in mediation, arbitration, whatever it is that people feel like they had their day in court. So they have to say what they have to say. And if they don't say what they have to say, they'll never be happy with the resolution. So I think that they have to get their point out, whether it's in a 47-page certification or affidavit, or just sit there and point fingers and say whatever it is. Now, if it gets to a point where it's getting so over the top, then of course, you have to maybe, like if it's getting a little out of control, maybe even get a little more physical, like, okay, everybody, just, you do like those let's just tone it down. Let's be respectful. You know, it almost makes you feel like you're talking to children sometimes, but then you do. And I try to use those words like we, and let's all let's regroup here. We're getting a little out of control. You know, I said, and sometimes I use the word, let's pretend this is a courtroom. Would you be acting like that?
Mhm.
But I'm with Adam and Bruce. I try to let everybody have their day and talk as much as possible.
I've taught in the 40-hour course since 2005, and in training a lot of new mediators, the tendency I have found is that new mediators want to cut off people quickly because I think they're not comfortable with conflict yet. They will become comfortable. And I think it's a real mistake to cut people off too quickly before they have their say. You can go too long, and I think that's a mistake too, as you've all been saying, but it's a worse mistake to cut them off short. And you learn, I think, where the middle ground is, the right place is just through experience. And as you get more comfortable with the conflict, you know, and you can sit back and conflict doesn't frighten you as a mediator.
Hey, Carl, before you go on, I just want to add one more thing to that.
Yes.
Because I think it takes a long time. It took me a long time to develop that comfort level to allow that conflict and not be, you know, quick to want to stop it. The opposite is true also. It took me a long time to accept silence and be comfortable with silence. And sometimes silence is really important. I'm finding it's a very different experience virtually than in person. But sometimes it's really important to just let people sit quietly for a couple minutes and reflect on what's going on without jumping in and saying something. And then the only thing I wanted to add to what Michelle said about their day in court, I tell people this all the time. People get their day in court way better in mediation than they'll ever get in a courtroom.
Sure.
Because in a courtroom, they're limited to the rules of evidence and the questions that their attorney's going to ask them. And they don't really get to tell what's really going on to anybody. And they do in mediation.
Yeah.
That's one of the benefits to this, right? I mean, that's the benefits. They can speak frankly rather than yes and no questions or, yeah.
Right.
Okay, Jody Davis, I'm allowing you to talk, and you need to unmute yourself. And so go ahead and ask.
Okay, so I was listening to, you know, I agree with Adam that I probably would delve a little bit more into validating in some way Michelle's frustration and, you know, maybe articulate that a little bit. But I was wondering if you would also go back, Bruce, to what I thought was a really good, not only tone, but an overall blueprint goal of saying, well, how do you want to be post-divorce toward each other? And maybe speaking to that in terms of, well, what are some of the patterns between the two of you that actually have worked when you are trying to communicate with one another in the past, even though this is a difficult time? And what do you think you've learned from that that maybe you could either do now or do a little bit differently in the process of mediation?
A resounding yes. I go back to that all the time. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But when I get a couple who tell me that they want to have a good, positive co-parenting relationship and they want to be amicable and they want to be on the same page, it's really helpful going forward. I very, very rarely, but every once in a while, I've had somebody who I've asked them what kind of relationship do you want to have with your spouse, and they'll say to me, none, I don't ever want to speak to him, or I don't ever speak to her again. That makes it way more difficult at that point. But, and I also think, you know, to some extent, you have to draw that fine line between, I'm an attorney, I'm not a social worker, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a psychologist, and so so if I feel like there's a benefit, there might be a benefit, I might suggest to them that they do some communication counseling or co-parenting counseling, some kind of short-term work with a social worker or a therapist or a psychologist to help if there's a communication issue like that. But generally, the answer to your question is yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Although as the party there, I would feel a little hesitant in terms of reflecting on my dynamics of what worked, what didn't work. I'm, in that place as that client, I'm in a very triggered place, very defensive, protecting myself. I don't know if I have the capacity to kind of have that self-awareness, at least not right in that moment.
How would it feel if I asked you, it probably wouldn't have been you, it probably would have been Michelle, but I might have said something like, how is this working for you? Like the way that you're communicating, is this working for you in here? Do you feel like it's effective? What would that have felt like if I asked you that?
Well, I was taking the tenor of the person. So right. So there was just so much fight in her, right? She's just, she's doing in her mind everything, and nobody else is living up to her expectations. So she's got her own constellation of issues. But I think if you had said that to me, I would have said, no, of course it's not working because nobody's listening to me. So we've had that across from us. We've had clients like that they're just they think that they're just right. So somehow they have to learn that, or they have to realize that that it's not working. So somehow they have to bend a little bit too. Because you can be sure, right, that she had a whole schedule of what time these kids go to bed. You know that, right? Like, she had their meal set out every week. She knew what snacks they were eating. She was just going to be one of those.
And he doesn't know how to take care of his kids at all.
No.
Right.
No, and if he gave them a lollipop on the day that they were supposed to not only be eating apples, the whole world is going to come crashing in.
Okay.
But he married her too, right? So there's
right.
Anju, I don't know if you have another question. If not, okay. So let me thank everybody for participating in this, and let me tell you what's going to happen in the future. So we're going to do this again. Next time, Adam is going to be the mediator. I have one volunteer to be one of the parties. But to make this successful and to make it long running, I need a number of people to volunteer to be one of the husband or the wife and eventually be a mediator. I know it takes a lot of courage to do it, but most of you are experienced mediators, and it's really valuable to everybody in the association to see different mediating styles, to see how different people approach problems, etc. So I'm really encouraging everybody to please participate in this by volunteering to be one of the three parties in this mediation. So send me an email, and you can find my email at the multiple ones I send out every week on webinars. Send me an email saying, yes, I'd like to volunteer to be a mediator or a husband and a wife, and that way we can keep this going. Also, Michelle is going to be doing mock mediations on the civil side. And that's going to start on October, I think we said the 26th.
right.
And so that will be a continuing series as well. As you know, divorce mediation and civil mediation are really very, very different. And so you'll really, I think, get a good insight into how they're different. I really encourage people to look at both. And it's going to be, I think, a great series for NJAPM. Also, if you like this today, please put it out on the listserv so I can get some sense as to whether you thought this was all valuable. So with that, I want to thank our panel. Yes, Michelle.
Carl, can I ask if anybody would like to volunteer to be a participant in the civil mediation? just please let us know as we're working towards developing that program as well.
Great. Sounds great.
Thanks.
Well, thank you. It was really, I think, a great hour. It was informative, and I really enjoyed it. Thank you, Michelle, Adam,
It was fun.
and have a great day.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Love you.